We were talking about great lineups in baseball history and how many teams have MVPs in their lineup. You, of course, have Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, and Mookie Betts with the Dodgers. We talked about the Big Red Machine because those guys won their MVPs with the Reds when you had Rose and Morgan and Bench and Foster. Peter King, who covered the Reds, I believe, for a little while in Cincinnati, longtime NFL writer. Where do you rank the Big Red Machine as far as lineups of all time?
Dan, it's got to be in the top five, clearly. I think it's hard because you have to rank lineups as, in their era. So I don't know how a lineup could be much better or any better than what the Yankees put on the field with Gehrig and Ruth. But the difference with this Reds lineup is that, look, a lot of times, obviously, the pitchers still hit. You have Davy Concepcion batting eighth. Sometimes maybe Cesar Geronimo, but I mean, they had an all-star batting eighth a lot of times. And I don't know. To me, I thought it was so dangerous, and that was such a potent group. And you're right. I covered them on and off for 4 years in the late 70s and early 80s as an intern. And then, I actually went on the road with the Reds 3 times in 80, 81, and 82. And so I got to know those guys. I got to know Johnny Bench, got to know Tom Seaver some. And they were totally fearless. That's the thing I loved about him. I just love the fact that Tony Perez, Concepcion, hey, bring it on. We love it.
We've been talking about Shohei Ohtani, that he has this added advantage that he's able to pitch. So no matter what you do hitting, he's going to be a great hitter, but he always has that. And I'm wondering if that translates to the NFL, that Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson have the added element of running as well as being really good passers, and how that gives them, does that give them a little bit more of a head start when it comes to MVPs?
Yeah, Shohei Ohtani to me is the guy in the NFL who'd be like him, maybe, is Travis Hunter at some point. Because you've always had mobile quarterbacks. You had Michael Vick and Colin Kaepernick running for 100 yards in playoff games. I was at Lambeau Field in, I think, 2002 when Michael Vick came in and beat Favre 27-7 in the snow. And he did it with his legs just as much as his arm. So that has existed. Ohtani is so special because he's not just a pitcher. He might be at his peak. He might be Garrett Crochet. Hey, Garrett Crochet might be Shohei. Because I don't want to demean Shohei Ohtani because, man, he's great. When I'm really looking forward next year. I hope that we could see him pitch 7 or 8 innings every 5th day. I hope. I have no idea what his body can take, but man, what a treat it is to watch him play.
All right, so I get a random text from you yesterday saying basically, Am I the only guy who is affiliated with football who is okay with a tie in overtime?
I actually like ties. The biggest reason, Dan, I'll take you back to 2021. There was one tie in the NFL that season. Pittsburgh tied Detroit 16-all. Okay, that was, Detroit either was winless at the time or whatever. They were a bad team at that time. But there was a tie, 16-16. At the end of the year, the Steelers' record was 9-7-1. Okay, and that season, there were 3 teams in the AFC that were 9-8. The Chargers, the Colts, and the Dolphins. So just imagine, and the Lions had a field goal in overtime that they missed. So imagine if the Steelers, if that field goal had been good and the Steelers would have lost. I don't know who would have won the tiebreaker, but it would have been a 4-team tiebreaker. A tie basically eliminates a tie at the end of the season. You're either north of the Mason-Dixon line or south of it, but it eliminates it. And plus, here's the other thing, Dan. That game the other night was incredibly fun. And at the end of it, now if you're a fan of one of the two teams, Green Bay or Dallas, maybe you're ticked off and if you're a player, you're ticked off that you got a tie. I mean, how can a fan just watching at home, you see the bizarre end, the clock stopped with 1 second left, and they're able to kick a field goal? How can you be upset at that? I mean, it was fun. It was scintillating the whole time. So I don't know. I mean, I bet that was a lot more fun than the 16-16 tie between Pittsburgh and Detroit. That was a fantastic football game.
Yeah, it was a great meal, but I got to have dessert and coffee, and when we didn't get that. I want to have, I'd like to have, a winner and a loser. That's why we play these games, to win or lose.
But it's so unique. It's so, I mean, there isn't even on average one tie per season. I think it's kind of cool. My grandson Freddie, who's a huge football fan, he's 7 years old, about to turn 8, and he watches all the games. And he got up Monday morning to get ready for school. And, my daughter said, "Hey, there was a tie last night, Green Bay and Dallas." A tie? How does that happen? I can't believe it. A tie. So I don't know. I think once in a while, different is fun.
If I task you with make overtime how you would want to make it, let's say it's different than what it is now, how would you improve overtime?
Well, the selfish person in me would want them to just play sudden death. Don't have a clock in overtime. The problem with that is, and I very much empathize with the players, I was dead set against a 17th game. I am deader set against an 18th game. It's just not fair to these players. It isn't. You're adding on 6% more snaps for a starting player and saying, there's not any more injury risk. Of course there is. So I understand why you don't want to add more snaps to overtime. Selfishly, I would like to see it go until it ends. But I don't think right now, in my opinion anyway, that there's a better system than this system that there is. The only way you could do it differently is to have first score wins, which I think is eminently unfair.
I'm wondering if the tush push is aesthetically not pleasing. Seeing kickers kick all these field goals is not aesthetically pleasing either, in my opinion. Does the NFL, how much of it should they be worried about the glut of kickers being so great at what they do?
I would be, because they didn't create this game to have. I mean, let's just say, Dan, that you're playing the Dallas Cowboys, and your kicker skitters one out of bounds, and you get the ball. The Cowboys get the ball at their own 40-yard line. Think about it. They need 10 yards to get Brandon Aubrey in field goal range. Yeah. And again, let's say they get it run it back to the 28. They only need 22, 23 yards to get him in field goal range, and not just a maybe field goal. He is likely to make a 66, 67-yard field goal, in weatherless conditions. I think the one thing the NFL has to look at, and and I don't really cover this, obviously now I'm retired, but I've been reading about how some of the balls that get broken in, the K balls, they get broken in better than they did before. And they're going to have to look at that to see if that is a big factor, because kicking a well-worn football is much better for a kicker than kicking a football right out of the box.
I know you voted for the Hall of Fame for decades. There's been a lot of conversation about Russell Wilson. Can you play your way out of the Hall of Fame? Now, I don't know if you had Russ in the Hall of Fame, in your opinion, but have players played their way out of the Hall of Fame?
I think so, and I think coaches can coach their way out of the Hall of Fame. You got to consider a guy's entire career. I think Russell Wilson was a borderline quarterback for the Hall of Fame. We have to remember a few things right now about the quarterback position. Look at the incredible glut of strong quarterback candidates for the Hall of Fame. I mean, I think Eli Manning is a strong candidate. Matthew Stafford is going to be a strong candidate. Matt Ryan is a candidate. You've got a lot of people who are candidates who've put up really, really good numbers. What differentiates you? And now we have seen Russell Wilson be disappointing in Denver, kind of get run out of Pittsburgh when they needed a veteran. They didn't choose to re-sign him. And he has, 2 out of 3 ignominious weeks with the Giants and loses his job. It all has to factor in, Dan. It would, I think and again, we'll see. I think he's got an uphill fight, but then again, his career's not over.
Yeah, I think Russ was far more consistent than Eli. You got 10 Pro Bowls back when it did mean something to be a Pro Bowl player.
I'm not sure it did mean something in 10 years ago, Dan. I don't think the Pro Bowl has meant anything in 25 years.
Okay, but he was a better regular season quarterback. His stats aren't, it's not even close. Eli is an inch away from having 1 Super Bowl with David Tyree's catch, and Russell is an inch away with Malcolm Butler from having 2 Super Bowls.
Blah, blah, blah. I mean, so what? I don't care. Could we go back to the championship game in 1958 and say, well, what if Johnny Unitas hadn't made such and such a pass, a miracle catch by whoever?
Raymond Berry.
Yeah, you can't act that way, in my opinion. I don't think you can.
But we're holding it against him because he lost that Super Bowl. If you win 2 Super Bowls and you have his resume, he's a Hall of Famer.
Okay, but Dan, Eli Manning beat the best quarterback head-to-head in the Super Bowl, best quarterback of all time, twice head-to-head. He beat the best coach of this era head-to-head in the Super Bowl twice. I don't care what his stats were. I don't care numbers. And I understand. I'm not saying he's a walk-in Hall of Famer, but what I'm saying is at the biggest moments, how about Eli Manning going into Green Bay when it's 900 below zero and beating a team that is used to playing like that in that a lot, beating Brett Favre in overtime. Look, I think Eli Manning, in my opinion, I'd vote for Eli Manning, and I'll tell you why. Because at the biggest moments of his career, he produced. And you're right. His regular season record, a lot of it is mediocre, even though he put up huge numbers. But I am more of a fan of, let's not get totally hung up on the numbers, especially because the numbers for quarterbacks now don't mean the same thing as they used to.
Yeah, but I can argue that the defensive line won that Super Bowl, that first one against Brady. They beat the hell out of him. They dominated that game.
How about the Joe Namath Super Bowl? Did Matt Snell have a much better game that day than Joe Namath? Yes.
Yeah.
And did the Jets defense totally snuff out the vaunted Colts offense?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. But Joe Namath was drafted by the New York Jets, chose the AFL over the NFL. And he had the signature, one of the great wins in history, and he predicted it was going to happen. And so I understand what you're saying.
But that's not enough to put him in the Hall of Fame. I don't think Namath had Hall of Fame numbers. He didn't.
That doesn't matter. He had Hall of Fame impact. He had a Hall of Fame impact. Okay. Huge impact.
Oh, I understand the aura of
and I
Joe.
think it's more. I'm not one of these guys. Of course, you look at his numbers. You look at Ken Stabler's numbers. You're going to say, geez, that's fairly mediocre. You're judging it on a different thing. How about Joe Namath throwing for 4,000 yards in a 14-game season? That is incredible in those days. So I'm only saying, I don't think you can say that, well, Joe Namath didn't have Hall of Fame numbers. No crap, Sherlock. I see the numbers too, but he had Hall of Fame impact.
Lenny Dawson was a better quarterback.
Okay, I don't care. Did he do what Joe Namath did?
Yeah, he won the Super Bowl.
He didn't do.
He
No
didn't
one
guarantee
in the
it.
60s.
He didn't.
No one in the 60s did what Joe Namath did for the sport of pro football. No one. And so, in my opinion, he absolutely belongs in the Hall of Fame. Was Len Dawson a better quarterback? Was Darryl LaMonica? Was that? I'm not. I don't really care. I mean, I just don't care.
I like you fired up.
Yeah.
Do you want to give?
All right, Dan. Who do you like tonight?
With the Red Sox and the Yankees?
Yeah, Red Sox, Yanks.
Well,
Let's hear it.
Since I'm talking to you, I'll take the Red Sox.
No, I mean, hey, look, they're relying on a kid who started the year in A-ball, right?
Both of these starters, I don't think they shave. They're all they're like 24 years. Whatever happened to deep pitching staffs?
Yeah, well, starters, the whole thing has changed. It's a bullpen game.
I know.
It's a bullpen game. And I'll tell you what, these two games, I don't know. I got to tell you something. Both these teams, I don't know how they get to the park and don't just pour themselves into their chair and say, geez, I need a nap. I mean, these games, just to watch them, have taken a ton out of it. So, I mean, they've really been fun. This has been good for baseball.
What were you doing 47 years ago?
47 years ago today,
Yes.
I was with my good friend Tony Grossi of the Post, the student newspaper at Ohio University. We skipped class that day, and at 2:00 in the afternoon, we walked into the Union, the nice little bar on campus, and we asked the guy to put it on, I think ABC, right? Put the TV on ABC, and we watched the Yankees and Bucky bleeping Dent win that game. And the class we skipped, news writing and editing, we were seniors. The professor of the class came in midway through the game at the end of the class, and he just said, yeah, you guys are in trouble. But he knew that we were going to be there, and we watched the game. It was a lot of fun.
Don't be a stranger, Pete. Something bothers you, gets you fired up, you let me know.
Thank you, Dan. Really appreciate you reaching out.
That's Peter King, Hall of Fame NFL writer. Yeah, Pete said to me yesterday, I'm fine with a tie in overtime, and asked me what I was doing 47 years ago. And I said, all right, I can do that. Always great to hear from him.